The FDA didn't say no because the drug doesn't work, it works. The FDA said no because of a factory. Factory. The drug that could actually slow progressive MS, the kind most treatments don't even touch, got held up not by bad science, but by a third-party manufacturing facility that didn't pass inspection. So today, we're not here to panic. We're here to understand exactly what happened, what it means, and whether there's still reason to hope. Spoiler, there is. If you're new here, this channel is where we break down MS simply. No doom, just truth. If you're living with MS, or trying to understand it, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, you'll want to stay. You clicked on this video because you heard there was finally a drug targeting progressive MS, and then heard the FDA blocked it, and you need to know if that story is actually as bad as the headline made it sound. It's not. But the full story's weirder, more frustrating, and honestly more hopeful than any headline told you. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand the drug, the rejection, and exactly what warriors with progressive MS should be watching for next. That's what this video is. Tiny interruption, I promise I'll make it quick. A few of you have asked how you can support the channel beyond watching the videos. Well, now you can. If you'd like to fuel more research and help Nuri avoid being more than a super mascot, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. Now back to your regularly scheduled Myelin confusion. Most people know MS, but progressive MS is the version where your body quietly, consistently accumulates disability without necessarily big relapses in between. It's not the dramatic kind, it's the slow, grinding kind. Think of relapsing remitting MS like a wildfire. It flares up, you battle it, maybe it goes out. Progressive MS is more like termites. You don't always see them, but the structure is quietly getting hollowed out. Here's the dirty truth about progressive MS drug development. Most of the big-name MS treatments, you know, the ones with commercials featuring people running on beaches, those were designed for relapsing MS. Progressive MS, specifically the non-relapsing kind, got almost nothing for decades. Why? Because relapses are measurable. Easy endpoints for trials. Progressive MS moves slowly. Hard to prove improvement in a clinical trial. So pharmaceutical companies historically went where the data was easier. Name some of the approved drugs for relapsing MS. It's a big roster. Now compare that to PPMS, primary progressive, or non-relapsing SPMS, secondary progressive. The list gets painfully short. The relapsing MS drug pipeline looked like a Cheesecake Factory menu. The progressive MS pipeline looked like a gas station at 11 p.m. Two options, flickering lights, and you're not sure either one is going to help. This is important setup. Because the drug we're talking about today is tolebrutinib. It was specifically targeting that gas station crowd, and for a minute, it looked like someone was finally remodeling the whole building. It belongs to a class called BTK inhibitors, which stands for Bruton's tyrosine kinase inhibitors. BTK is basically a hyperactive event coordinator inside certain immune cells, specifically microglia, the brain's resident immune cells. Microglia are great until they're not. When BTK goes haywire, it's like that coordinator keeps scheduling inflammation parties in your central nervous system. Nobody RSVP'd. The venue wasn't available, but the party keeps getting booked anyway. A BTK inhibitor essentially walks up to that coordinator, takes their calendar, and says, "We're done here." What makes tolebrutinib different? It can cross the blood-brain barrier. This is not a small thing. Most MS drugs work in the periphery, outside the CNS. Tolebrutinib gets inside. It targets the damage happening at the source. This is why the progressive MS community was watching it closely. Progressive MS isn't primarily about big inflammatory relapses. It's about smoldering neuroinflammation inside the brain and spinal cord, exactly where this drug goes. It's developed by Sanofi. It went through a massive phase 3 trial program called Hercules for non-relapsing secondary progressive MS. And, yes, I know, Hercules is a wild name for an MS drug trial. The Hercules trial was a global phase 3 study for people with non-relapsing secondary progressive MS, NRSPMS. These are the warriors where the MS is progressing, but they're not having classic relapses. The hardest group to treat, the group most drugs simply don't reach. The headline results showed that tolebrutinib slowed confirmed disability accumulation by 23% compared to the placebo over 48 weeks. That is not nothing. That is the first time a drug in a phase 3 trial has shown statistically significant slowing of disability accumulation in this specific group. What does slowing disability accumulation actually mean in real life? I'll break it down in plain language because we're not talking about reversing damage. We're talking about slowing how fast the damage stacks up. Think of it like this: if MS disability is a slow leak in your tire, this drug doesn't patch the hole, but it slows how fast the air gets out. That matters enormously for quality of life and function over years. Imagine, you're watching sand fall through an hourglass. You can't stop time, but a drug that genuinely slows that hourglass by nearly a quarter, over a decade, that's not a small number. That can improve your independence. The study was large enough and the results were statistically significant enough that Sanofi filed for FDA approval. There was also a trial for primary progressive MS, PPMS. Results were more modest, they didn't hit its primary endpoint there. But for SPMS, the data was legitimately exciting. After decades of warriors with progressive MS being told, there's really not much we can do, a phase 3 win, even a modest one, felt seismic. It felt like the door was finally opening, and then the FDA reviewed it, and issued a complete response letter, and everyone lost their minds. Before we get to what happened, let's make sure we understand what a complete response letter, CRL, actually is, because most news coverage treats it like a death sentence, and it is not. A CRL is not no. A CRL is Amazon's, your order can't be fulfilled as submitted, please update your shipping information, and resubmit. The product might be perfectly fine, but something in the order form or the fulfillment chain needs to be fixed before it ships. The FDA issues a CRL when they've reviewed a drug application, and something is incomplete, deficient, or unresolved. It could be safety data, it could be labeling, it could be manufacturing, it could be a combination. Critically, a CRL is not a denial of a drug's efficacy. The FDA is not saying this doesn't work, they are saying we need more before we can approve this. Drug companies can and regularly do respond to a CRL and get approved in the next review cycle. So when you saw the headline that the FDA rejects progressive MS drug, that framing overstates it. The more accurate version, FDA pumps the brakes and asks Sanofi to come back with some fixes. That's a different story. The real question is, what exactly did the FDA flag? And this is where it gets interesting. Here's where the actual story lives. The FDA's CRL cited two main concerns, and neither of them was the drug doesn't work. Concern number one, manufacturing. A third-party contract manufacturing organization, CMO, which is a facility involved in producing the drug, failed a facility inspection. The FDA has strict requirements not just about what a drug does, but about where and how it's made. If the factory doesn't pass inspection, the drug doesn't ship. Doesn't matter how good the science is. This is like a 5-star chef applying to open a restaurant. The health inspector loves the food. The menu is incredible. But the commissary kitchen that supplies the ingredients, there's a pipe issue. The license doesn't get issued. Not because the tacos are bad, because the building they're made in failed inspection. The chef doesn't throw away the recipe. They fix the building. Concern number two, liver safety monitoring data. During the trials, a subset of patients showed elevated liver enzyme levels. The FDA wanted more clarity on how to monitor this in real-world patients using updated safety monitoring protocols, clearer labeling guidance. This is standard FDA caution when a drug shows a liver signal in trial data. This second point is worth taking seriously. Liver monitoring in the real world requires clarity. But it's also not a, this drug is dangerous, full stop conclusion. It's more like we need clearer guardrails before warriors are on this unsupervised. Neither of these reasons is fatal to tolebrutinib. Neither says the drug fails. Both say, not yet. Fix these things first. Imagine training for years for the Olympics, qualifying for finals, and then, on the day of the competition, they tell you your shoelaces don't meet specifications. You're not kicked out of the Olympics. But you do have to get new shoes before you run. Sanofi has publicly stated they are preparing a response and intend to resubmit. This drug is not dead. It is in the fix the shoes phase. The honest answer, tolebrutinib is not available in the US right now, but the clinical path forward is real and active. Sanofi's timeline, they are working on resolving the manufacturing facility issues and compiling the additional liver safety data the FDA requested. Resubmission timeline hasn't been officially announced publicly, but this is the kind of CRL that companies respond to within a year to 18 months. Outside the US, the situation may differ by country. If you're a warrior outside the US, check with your neurologist specifically about European Medicines Agency, EMA, review status for tolebrutinib. The European review may be on a different track. What can warriors do right now? Talk to your neurologist about your progressive MS disease trajectory now, not when the drug is available. Building that relationship and documented history matters when new options arrive. Ask about clinical trial eligibility if you have non-relapsing SPMS or PPMS. Sanofi and other BTK inhibitor developers still have active programs. Stay informed, but selectively. This is not a story that requires daily panic refreshing. Come back when there's a resubmission announcement. The BTK inhibitor pipeline is bigger than one drug. Tolebrutinib is the furthest along specifically for progressive MS, but it's not the only BTK inhibitor in development. Fenebrutinib and others are also being studied. The science of targeting CNS-resident inflammation is advancing even if one application hit a regulatory speed bump. Nuri would tell you, this is a not yet situation, not a never situation. And we've been waiting long enough that not yet is worth taking seriously. The real lesson in this story isn't about tolebrutinib specifically, it's about what it means to be an informed MS warrior in the era of drug development. Headlines will always make CRLs sound like catastrophic defeats. They're not. The drug approval process is long, bureaucratic, and maddeningly slow, but it exists for real reasons. A rejected factory inspection isn't a conspiracy, it's the system working as designed. Here's the actual breakthrough buried in all of this. A phase 3 trial showed statistically significant slowing of disability in non-relapsing SPMS. That happened. That data exists. No CRL changes what the Hercules trial found. The science isn't going backwards. What you should take from today's video, progressive MS now has a genuine evidence-backed drug candidate in the pipeline that specifically targets CNS inflammation. The road to your prescription has a speed bump on it, but the road exists. And for a condition that for decades didn't even have a road, that is not nothing. You deserve to understand this stuff, not to live in your neurologist's office, but because knowledge is the only tool in this whole situation that belongs entirely to you. If this video helped you make sense of what you've been hearing, hit subscribe. New videos every week breaking down MS with no doom and no jargon. And if you want to support this channel directly, join Team I'm Not Myelin over on the Buy Me a Coffee page. Link is below. I'll see you in the next one.